news, we now have the tally. 19 protesters have been arrested in Chicago during these demonstrations known as Moral Mondays. Protesters seem to be disbanding at this hour, though, after having demanded economic equality and no more tax cuts for the wealthy. We are going to bring you more on this story as it develops. But again, this is a huge topic of discussion, from the vineyards of California to the back room of the GOP power brokers. Everybody trying to figure out how to deal with this type of issue here. But we have many different situations, multi-millionaires who want to solve some of the problems. Multi-millionaires. But they want to help with the situation, and let's bring in one of them. John Jordan has used his business skills and personal fortune to support political campaigns across the country at both the local and national levels. John, great to have you here. You know, I'm wondering if you saw these protests, and you've been a guy who says you're a social liberal, but definitely a fiscal conservative. These protesters feel that the rich aren't paying their fair share. Do you sense some understanding about where they stand, or do you feel everything's misguided? Give us your thought here.
Well, two thoughts. First of all, you know, it's not surprising and unfortunate that it's the blue states where public employees are going to get hurt the worst going forward. Second of all, I would like to ask a question to the protesters, and that is, at what point do you think marginal tax rates are high enough? At what point do you think people are taxed too much? I would bet that it's going to be very difficult to get a straight or quantitative answer out of them.
Yeah, I think that we found that. We consistently ask the protesters, because we're fair and balanced here, you know, what is fair? What is their fair share? But looking at, for example, a man like you, you've been extremely successful. You've got the winery, you've got other options that bring in money, but you represent the type of donor that the presumptive nominee needs: ready, willing, and able with cash and fundraising prowess, but also the smarts to understand what the protesters are asking for and to figure out how to get them to come around to understanding what might really work. Is Donald Trump going to be your candidate? Will he support them? Because in the past you supported both Scott Walker and Marco Rubio.
Okay. Well, first of all, I support the cause of freedom. But more to the point,
is that a yes on Donald Trump? You support Donald Trump?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But more to the point, it's kind of like the early morning of December 7th, 1941 for the battleship admirals of the political class. For several generations, races have been looked at through the lens of its left versus right, public sector versus private sector. This year, there has seen a real paradigm shift. And the shift now is towards insider versus outsider. And that's what Donald Trump really represents. He's the quintessential outsider. And campaigns aren't, don't snap up overnight and don't just exist. They're built over time. And he is doing the three things that he needs to do right now in the run-up to the convention. And the mainstream media is playing along beautifully with it. First of all, he's acclimating the American people to the fact that he's an outrageous character. Later on, this will serve to inoculate him towards some of the attacks that the Democrats will launch. Second of all, he's establishing himself as the tough outsider who can get things done. And thirdly, he is working to lower media expectations of him, so that when he goes into the convention and the debates, all he has to do is show up with matching shoes on, and his numbers will go up a few points.
Well, putting aside his strategies on the media, looking at the issues at hand, does he even need the GOP establishment? Paul Ryan has said, I'm not ready to fully endorse him. And by the way, if Donald Trump is going to ask Paul Ryan to step down as chairman of the the Republican National Convention, Paul Ryan said, I'll do that. I mean, what kind of message is being sent here? Does Donald Trump need the GOP?
No, this is a game. This is a war that Donald Trump can only win. If Speaker Ryan relents and endorses Donald Trump, it'll be spun, right or wrong, but successfully, that Donald Trump wrangled Paul Ryan and broke him to his will. If Paul Ryan does not endorse and continues to move away, it allows Donald Trump to run truly as an outsider and hang Congress's unpopularity around Hillary Clinton's neck. He'll be able to say credibly that it's the elites of both parties are out to get me. Even the elites in the Republican Party are out to get out to support Hillary Clinton, and that'll really bolster his case as an outsider going into the general. The rules, the laws of political physics this cycle, as we have known them to be for more than a generation have completely broken down.
Well, the laws of budgets and deficits have certainly been up to question. I want to bring in Charlie Gasparino, and he's got a question for you, John.
Well, John, how about the laws of statistics? I don't think they've been busted down. Let's give you a little statistics. He has huge negatives with Hispanics, about 78% negative rating with Hispanics, huge negatives with African Americans, huge negatives with women. This is Donald Trump we're talking about. And he's got to do better than 85%, he's got to win more than 85% of the Republican vote, given what's going on with those other groups. That's 85% is what Romney won the last time, and still lost by five points, I think, or 3 points in the popular vote, but a landslide in every electoral college. That seems to me to be a crazy, crazy uphill battle this guy has. If you are teeing off Republicans, remember, Paul Ryan's not some sort of, guy sipping Chablis in one of your wineries. This is a rock solid conservative Republican from a purple state. He's hardly an elitist. He may represent the establishment, but you start teeing off him, you're going to lose Republican votes, and people are going to say, "Wow, why am I voting for this nut?"
Well, first of all, I'm not going to minimize in any way some of the challenges that you described with regard to Donald Trump's current polling numbers. And I emphasize the word current here. If you look throughout the history of elections, numbers have consistently changed. Candidates have been morphed and reinvented and come from behind many, many times.
Which one?
Dukakis.
Not the last 5 ones.
No, H.W. Bush came out of when Dukakis came out of the Democratic National Convention in 1988. Okay,
that's the last one. But if you look at some of the polling around President Clinton on both elections, you look at the polling on George W. Bush with Kerry and Gore, and you look at the polling with Obama twice, pretty much matched up. And by the way, those are when Republican candidates were actually closer in the polling. I mean, this guy has got a mountain to climb that seems really steep. Now, listen, I've been wrong about everything about him, but my point is, if you're pissed, I don't want to say that, but if you're teeing off your base that you need 100% turnout, and you have high negatives with the other ones, it seems like it's an insurmountable.
Okay, let's let John answer, and then we got to go.
I mean, but you're assuming, okay, but first of all, these numbers in politics are almost never static. The election isn't for another 5.5 months.
You're right.
He has an opportunity to close this gap, and the mechanics, the physical forces of this election are unlike anything we've ever seen before. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm saying it could happen.
Yeah.
And if something like that dramatic was going to happen, it would happen in a cycle like this. So I agree with you where we are, but you can't. I think it's an oversimplification to look at these numbers as
I agree.
John, do us a favor. You're going to be adding a lot of money into super PACs now to support Donald Trump?
No, I don't. I mean, that's not really my bag.
Wait,
Donald Trump.
You've started super PACs. You've started PACs at least, right?
Yes, I have. I will support Donald Trump. But it's worth pointing out that money in this race has not had the effect that it has had in others.
This is
I mean,
true.
you look at the Jeb fiasco. You look at, for example, in a 3-week period in Iowa,
that's with 16 candidates, sir. That's with 16. You're running against an extremely. Let me make this point. You're running against an extremely well-financed Democrat. They're going to bombard Donald Trump already in swing states in June.
No.
And he's not raising any
I'm getting
money.
yelled at, so John, quickly, and then we've got to go. Go ahead and make your final point, John.
Well, real fast, to give you an example, Hillary Clinton in a 3-week period spent $2 million in Iowa. Yes, she eked it out, but her numbers actually went down. The relationship between money and ad spending, that correlation coefficient, isn't what it used to be. Sanders had message but no money, and all of a sudden the money is following the message. Okay. Again, the laws of physics are breaking down.
Well, Bernie Sanders is definitely proving that. John, lovely to have you. Please come back. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
John Jordan and Charlie Gasparino.